Yep, I think we are ready to get going here. Welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Atle Schekland. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Infotechtion. I'm joined here by one of my colleagues and co-founder, the smartest person I know that knows everything really about Microsoft 365 data security and data governance. But it's also a really, really nice guy. So Vivek, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I'm Vivek, CTO at Infotechtion. I look forward to talking to you about today's topic.
So, and if you don't know Infotechtion is, a solution and services firm specializing in Microsoft Purview data security, data governance. We have offices in the US, UK, Netherlands, Norway, India, and also opening up France, Germany in the nearby future. So if what we're going to cover here is really how can Purview be used as a unified security and governance solution. So how do we take Purview and embrace and extend that across multiple technologies and workloads? Infotechtion will provide some information for at the end, how to get additional information, additional learning. Just also you know that we are fast track approved by Microsoft, if you're familiar with that program, and also easy funding, if you're familiar with that. You have the chat function available for you, so you can ask questions along the way. We'll do our best to respond during the sessions. And if we don't have time to respond, we'll do our best to respond after the session and send you a note. I also know there's a couple of colleagues that join here that can also join in the conversations. So let's get going here. Just starting on the big picture on what's, important out there. And, there it is. We have issues. See screen is showing? Yeah. So from data security, this is something, if you look at research, it's not really if this is going to happen, but when you're going to have a data security concern. And when you are getting into a situation, insider actually account for 20% of data breaches, adding quite a big cost. And organizations out there has been very fragmented approach how to solve and address this issue. And I just want to share then what's then really the task at hand here. Because cybersecurity and investment in that's the outer circle, protecting that. But to ensure that we then better protect sensitive and important information, we need to look at the inner circles and ensuring that that's under control. So that's sensitive information, could be the crown jewels of the organization, but also things like records, the key documentation, things that we are documenting business decisions, ensure things that are required for business continuity or required by law, and protecting that. So to better manage that, protect that, we need to know what that is. Where is that information? Where is that data? And if you just think about this, if you don't really have visibility into your data estate, it will take you longer, if ever, to discover issues and risks in the organization. And a couple of things also I want to share of the risk picture. The common things we hear is that protecting data is difficult because business people have changing priorities. It's difficult to get their attention. They're focused on doing their job, not necessarily data security governance. So that's an ongoing fight. But also that, yes, we have increasing volume of information, exponential data growth, and we need to figure out then what's sensitive, what's record. How do we then identify that, classify that correctly? And that's the problem even today. And if you think you have a problem today, it's going to get even more difficult tomorrow. There's a third thing perhaps, and that is that we lack an integrated view often of user behaviors and data across application and platforms. Often you have to do this application by application or provider by provider, and we like to have something that goes across. And perhaps as the last example is that we have alerts, but usually again, often linked to one solutions or just a few solutions. And we would like to have that across. And these challenges or areas we're looking at is actually getting even more important when you look at Microsoft Copilot and other type of similar solution and preparing for the readiness for those. So as an example, Copilot will surface all organizational data which that people have at least view permission access to. So if you don't really have a good control of who can see what in the organization, there's a lot of you that are at risk here of people will see things that shouldn't really see and that the solution will leverage. There's also that there's a lot of information out there that does not have a security or Microsoft sensitivity classification with sensitivity labels. And especially, even though we might have implemented that moving forward, there's an awful lot of, legacy information that's not classified. So we don't really know what is sensitive, what's important, and therefore limiting perhaps access to those. And lastly, of course, AI, like Copilot, will generate additional sensitive information, and how do you then address those scenarios and mitigate those risks? So what we're hearing then from large organizations is that there's a couple of issues we have to, address. One is that, yes, we think we have an oversharing issues, but we're missing the right tools to identify where are my risks, what's my problems. Another is that, yes, I see the value of sensitivity labels to class at least what's sensitive for me and not sensitive, but based on the volume, based on the size, it will take me years. This is actually a real example. They counted it will take them 41 years. What are the ways we can speed that up? And third is that our structured applications are protected, but when things go out of that, for example, downloading Excel list or customer list or data from an application, how do we address that? And the alerts we're getting, how do we ensure that actually we can prioritize what's the right alerts versus perhaps just things we just need to know about? How do we prioritize and group and filter those? And last few is that Microsoft Purview, yes, that's brilliant for 365 and managed in the cloud, but it does not really provide it for an interface to then extending that to others. So, and then perhaps last example is that if we're hoarding information, we are more and more getting redundant, obsolete, and trivial information. We're getting duplicates and near duplicates, and that's adding to the growing data footprint, which actually just creates it even more difficult to manage this. So these are just some of the things that we've been hearing from large organizations. And this is like, okay, so what's then the solution to this? And that's where I'm going to, introduce the little bit framework that it's absolutely worth considering and thinking about here. First of all, what you see on top there, yes, we have a quick start. We realize that for data security, most of you have a lot of the same requirements. It's a little bit, so you can do an awful lot just implementing best practice. So we developed what we call a quick start, which basically is implementing Microsoft Purview data security with information protection, insider risk management, and perhaps data loss prevention in 6 to 8 weeks for even large international companies, if you just follow the best practices or do it as the first starting point. But what we will focus on this in the rest of this webinar is the operational extensions. And the operational extensions is really a number of things to basically embrace and extend Microsoft Purview to address some of the issues I covered in the previous slide. One is that you have a single business interface to actually work across multiple applications. It could be Box, hosted file service, SharePoint on-premise, but also other cloud apps and platforms. Then you have operational workflows for discovery, classification, protection of dark data at scale, how to identify duplication, near duplicate, and retrofitting of existing data. Then you have integrated analytics and alerts, leveraging Microsoft Sentinel to prioritize focus on high-risk activities. And you have data security, privacy, and disposition workflows integrated with alert analytics. And these are all native integration with Microsoft 365 through Graph APIs to ensure that your data is secure and meets your cybersecurity information risk management requirements. So that what this solution is operational extensions is no overlap in Microsoft native capabilities. It really just improve and enhance the user experience built on native experience provided by 365. And we're proud to actually say that this is an evergreen model to ensure that the Infotechtion solution is aligned with the 365 roadmap. So when Microsoft comes out with enhancements in the future, you can unplug this and leverage Microsoft instead. And to explain this a little bit more detail, just want to have one last slide before handing over to Vivek for live demonstration and talk us through this. But if you look at the green bar here, which is the Microsoft Purview for data security, data governance, mainly focused on the Microsoft cloud, then we embrace and extend that with our iArm solution. Could be to file servers, Azure Files, Azure Blobs, Google, and others. But it's also operational enhancement on top there to actually add additional features to streamline the process even more. So I'll pause there for a second and say, Vivek, you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, thank you, Atle. And before I take control and demonstrate some of the product capabilities, um, the engine behind our operational extensions is very much true to Microsoft Purview, Microsoft's roadmap, and also the new capabilities Microsoft is bringing in, whether it is endpoint capabilities with data loss prevention, or multi-cloud governance capabilities. Behind the scenes is leveraging all of those different capabilities, but helping you operationalize those capabilities, not just in the form of dashboards and reports. And I'll show you in a minute when I get to the demo, is also be able to trigger the operational workflows, which often requires customers to write scripts, ad hoc solutions to be able to achieve those objectives. And also not only just achieve those objectives, quite often those relate to the existing information which is not classified, which doesn't yet come into the scope of what you have within Microsoft 365, but you still want to manage that information using the Microsoft security, Microsoft Purview, Microsoft compliance capabilities, which you are leveraging within Microsoft 365.
So the benefit of this is that basically you leverage the Microsoft Purview, embrace and extend that to create one platform to manage the data at scale, discover, classify, protect, and manage lifecycle across multiple workloads and cloud, leveraging Microsoft Purview and some enhancement. That means it's a simple, central, cost-effective solution, one place to configure as best as possible within multiple applications. It's a way then to basically be compliant and future-proof, discovering what's your rot, identifying what's sensitive, identify what's record, and addressing those things we talked about in the beginning of the presentation. But I think I talked enough here now, Vivek, and instead hand it over to you to take it away and show how does this actually look like?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Just while you are going to stop sharing and I'll share my screen. One important point to note here is the biggest use case that we are seeing with our customers is not about implementing the capabilities or the extensions for data within Microsoft 365. I think it's fair to say that Microsoft Purview or Microsoft security capabilities do a fantastic job of managing information within Microsoft 365. The biggest use case we are supporting for customers is data which is not yet in Microsoft 365, and for some foreseeable future is probably not going to be in Microsoft 365. So what can you do about that data, which also needs sensitive data analysis, which also needs protection, which also needs discovery, also needs retention management. So our value proposition in context of embracing and extending Microsoft Purview is enabling your investment into Microsoft Purview to be able to manage information, govern information, which is outside of Microsoft 365. Okay, so Atla, if you want to stop share, I will hopefully.
I hear that. I think it might be a dog in the background. That's also really looking forward to the demonstration, Vivek.
Unfortunately, I don't see the sharing button. Just
so I've stopped sharing like we had this earlier on test. So this
should
be showing up.
I can. Okay, so.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
See my screen? Okay,
yep.
All right.
And just as a heads up, this is a live demonstration, and there's always talk about then what could happen, and we'll see then, but it should be fine. Fingers crossed.
All right. So, well, thank you. I'll I'll try and show as much as possible of the solution. So what you see on the screen is the Infotechtion add-on to Microsoft Purview, which, as Atle said, is embracing and extending Microsoft security, Microsoft Purview capabilities. What you see on the screen is an initial dashboard, is an overall management interface dashboard of how your policies are implemented in Microsoft 365, outside of Microsoft 365. Let me show you actually a quick look at all the data sources which we support in our solution. So there's a long list of solutions which we can integrate with our product. And what that means is that by integrating these sources, data sources, structured, semi-structured, unstructured data sources, we are able to extend the policies, the sensitive information, type definitions, the retention labels, the sensitivity labels, which you have created within Microsoft Purview for managing information in Microsoft 365, can also be extended to manage that information in these solutions. Now, some of these solutions have a direct integration, which allows us to perform scanning, data discovery, data classification, and apply governance controls in those systems when data is in those places. For example, most of the unstructured data repositories, but also some of the systems which we don't have a direct integration. So we have a connector framework through which that data can be ingested into Microsoft Cloud Platform, and that data can then be managed with the policies and controls. For example, SAP SuccessFactors. That's one of the sources where files, templates, unstructured component of SAP SuccessFactors is integrated with Microsoft Purview. A connector framework ensures that all of those files and all of that information is managed within Microsoft 365. Retention, sensitivity controls are applied, and also integration with processes. So when an employee leaves the company event, then the integration ensures that the retention or that event is triggered in Microsoft 365 through our solution as well, to ensure that the retention controls are applied automatically and you don't have to do any additional configuration to manage the unstructured component of that data. So going back to the summary, we have a number of dashboards here as part of the solution. And of course, there's a focus on retention part, but we also have the capabilities to be also able to show you how your sensitivity labels are applied to information. If you are using data loss prevention policies, then integrating and bringing the Microsoft API-based capabilities to be able to bring more information on the alerts, which often in the Microsoft Purview portal has a limited amount of those values available, but through APIs there is much more detail which is accessible through the audit logs, and often writing reports or queries into the audit logs of Microsoft Purview is challenging. So we kind of bringing all of that data from the audit logs, integrating that with some of the capabilities like technically behind the scenes with log analytics, and presenting those in terms of curated reports. And overall, you can also see the usage summary of your records. What are your top labeling activities? How labels have been applied over the course. And of course, from a lifecycle management point of view, across multiple sources, as and when items come up eligible for disposal, regardless of whether they require a disposition review by somebody or automated deletion, our solution again taps into the Microsoft Purview unified audit logs to be able to bring that information and present it to you in a sort of more business friendly manner. Many customers who have implemented things like retention policies, even in Microsoft 365, have an audit requirement to be able to demonstrate that items are deleted by retention policies. So Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Purview captures that information when an item is deleted by a retention policy, but it doesn't provide an aggregated view of over time, over different dimensions or by business, etc., how many items have been deleted. So this provides us the ability to be able to integrate the audit information, but also bring in your organizational context, which is much more important. So it's fine to know that 52,000 records are eligible for disposal. How do you know how many of those belong to finance versus HR? And if they require a disposition review, will everybody across the organization uh, see these 1,000 records which are mapped to a retention label, or is there a way to be able to distribute these and distribute the ownership of these records as per your site structure, as per your folder structure, etc. So we have a number of reports here. I just want to show you records overview report. So as I said, there are multiple sources which are supported. And for example, records management across multiple sources, including SharePoint Online, is supported and provides the opportunity to be able to see all of those records as they are managed in different systems. So it could be M files, it could be ServiceNow, it could be Confluence. So our capability isn't just about Microsoft 365, but also extending that. The very same retention labels which you have created in Microsoft Purview, we have the ability to be able to connect those retention labels to files which are sitting in other platforms. Now, again, um, this isn't this isn't a message where we are discouraging you to use Microsoft 365. I think it's quite the opposite. Using our solution, many of our customers are also using this portal to also be able to track what information is identified as a record or important information or long-term value, and use this to migrate or transition that data from those platforms into either Microsoft 365, SharePoint Online, or on Azure Cloud Storage, especially if they have archival requirements, information, let's say, which is sitting on network file shares or other solutions or legacy platforms, which you might consider as legacy, and you have an intention to move from those platforms or those file storage platforms onto Microsoft 365, you can over time look to use this as a platform to be able to identify information, of course, delete the information which you don't need, but importantly, the information that you do need and you need to keep, you can start the migration workflows from this solution. So for that, I'm just going to switch to the Data Explorer part of our solution. And this is, again, very much built on the foundation of Microsoft Purview. The Microsoft Purview data governance capabilities, which expands data discovery, data classification from Microsoft 365 to other unstructured, semi-structured, structured data sources. Our solution is built on top of the Microsoft Unified Data Governance Platform, and some additional components of our own to be able to provide you with a unified data discovery across all your storage systems. So for example, in this case, this dashboard is built on is connected to multiple data sources, and across those data sources, our solution is doing a data discovery and presenting redundant, obsolete, trivial, duplicate files, sensitive files. I'll go into that a little bit more in detail because I think that's quite an interesting piece. Is again using these sensitive information type definitions. If you are already using those with Microsoft Purview solution, then those very same sensitive information type definitions out of the box or custom definitions are leveraged by our solution and extended out to analyze and classify the data outside of Microsoft 365. So as part of this, let me just go go into this. On the left-hand side, you see all the sensitive information type templates, which are supported by our solution. All these templates are actually available within Microsoft Purview. So from our solution point of view, we are pulling all of that information from Microsoft Purview and extending that out and using those definitions to be able to analyze the data. It might be sitting on network file shares, it might be sitting in a Google workspace, and it might be sitting on an Azure file share or a blob storage. But our solution extends the same definition, so you get the consistency of all of those comparisons across your full data set. For example, if I select here, there's a number of templates which are supported. For example, IP address. Not only you get to see what's matching, our solution also brings up what did it find, and as part of that you can then decide whether this is a valid case or a valid match, or it is a false positive. The other benefit or the value add on using this interface is not only you can just view this, but I could actually select this particular file, and I could say, well, I don't agree with this, that this contains IP address, and I could actually select another sensitive information type from the list. So, for example, I could say, let's just, for the sake of presentation, let's just say it contains Swift code. And by the way, it contains Swift code, and the sensitivity on this should be restricted. One of the biggest challenges we find is that when an information already has a sensitivity label or a sensitivity classification, operationally, it's very difficult to then drive remediations. And often customers invest in, third-party solutions, but they are not integrated with Microsoft Purview. So having this add-on extension provides the ability to not only present what has been already classified by the system, but also brings in additional workflows through which you can drive corrections. And as part of this, the remediation. So one of the big value proposition is, of course, supporting multiple sources, but also driving those remediation workflows. And there's a number of remediation workflows which are supported in this product. One of this is updating the sensitive information definition or classification for it, changing the sensitivity labels. And as part of that, you can also apply a retention classification to it. Now, these retention classifications are coming from Microsoft Purview. So these are the same retention classifications or retention labels which you will use to manage your information in a Microsoft 365. The same are extended over here to manage the information in other sources. And as part of this, you can also drive review workflows, etc. So if you wanted to change this classification, but you wanted to drive an ad hoc review, let's say maybe send it to legal or send it to a peer or a colleague, then this supports the workflows in the background so that once the review is done, the system automatically then updates itself, updates those classifications, and where required or where possible, enforces the controls. So for example, in this case, this change will result in updating the sensitivity label on this particular file based on the workflow that you have triggered. So just coming back to this, there are a number of such workflows which are supported in this. And the objective here is to kind of drive value from your ongoing investments and your implementation of Microsoft Purview capabilities, which out of the box, and again, this is not an add-on to help you implement Microsoft Purview. You are probably already doing and running those initiatives, but the capability is there to kind of more manage it operationally. And those operational workflows, when after implementing your data loss prevention policies, records management, retention, label capabilities, how do you operationally drive regulatory changes? So if we look at the next tile, which is records, these are all the records which have been classified in the system. But if, let's say, there is a regulation change and this particular retention classification, or if I pick something else, these 1,000 records need to be reclassified because the regulation has changed, and as part of this, a new retention label is available. So again, the same context, you can drive those workflows from over here. You can drive those corrections. You can apply a retention label over here, and also you can ensure that by driving through this, all the information is audited behind the scenes, and you have a full audit log of all of that data. Similarly, if these records are outside of Microsoft 365, for example, these records are actually sitting on a file share, we have extended the capability to be able to do those matches, apply retention labels or retention label classification to those and present them back to you. But as part of this, this is the particular record series that you want to identify all the records across all the sources and migrate them to Microsoft 365. And it could be Microsoft 365. The two locations we support for migration is Microsoft 365 SharePoint Online, and Azure Files or Azure Blob Storages, especially Azure Blob Storages, if you're looking to move this content from an archival point of view. So straight away, this data can be migrated into Azure Blob Storage, and it can be set to an archival storage tier, which means that you also have the opportunity to make cost savings compared to what you pay on network file shares versus when data is moved into an archival form into Azure Blob Storages. Okay, then there's a number of other reports also available. You see at the top that we also support physical records. And as part of this physical records capability, again, it's a solution which is built to be able to drive an inventory management of physical records, not a full grown physical records management solution, but the ability to be able to look at physical records, register them, and apply the same retention classifications, the sensitivity classifications through that, and manage some of the workflows associated with those. Now, we have looked at data classification, data discovery and classification. There is an engine behind this, which is, as I said, built on Microsoft Purview capabilities, plus additional components which are used to identify rot, duplicate, empty files, etc. We have a configuration here where you can come in and give your own definition of what you consider as redundant, obsolete, trivial. And associated with the redundant, obsolete, trivial data, there are again workflows. If you want to delete files which are identified, which in this case is 68% of the data, by doing that and establishing repeated recurring workflows or retention workflows, you can get rid of your redundant, obsolete, trivial data on a regular basis based on these review cycles. Now, once this data is classified, one of the integrated capabilities with our solution is retention management. So in addition to identifying sensitive files, applying protection capabilities to it, is also identify records or information of long-term value, manage and apply record retention to it. And often those records or items which are managed through retention require a review at the end of the retention cycle. So our solution has an extension to provide the disposal review capabilities, which is quite comprehensive. Again, the same message pulls together all items which are eligible for disposal across multiple sources. And through this interface, you have the ability to be able to assign responsibilities based on various parameters. You might want to assign review capabilities of only certain type of records, maybe employee records, when they come up for review or an event, maybe a review of an event that an employee has left the company. There are a number of scenarios, especially in the regulated industry, where a disposition review is required at the end of the retention period. And again, Microsoft Purview provides the disposal workflow capability. So this is plugged into the Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Purview disposal capabilities, but provides additional experience in order to be able to curate these disposal experiences in context of your organizational structure. So, for example, records which are eligible for disposal and are part of a site or a folder on a network file share, which is accessible to HR or owned by HR, when they come up for disposal, they should only be accessible for review to the nominated individual. So as part of this, as a business approver, I get to see only the records which are where I have the ownership. I can manage this across multiple workspaces, including physical records. Using the left-hand menu, I have the ability to be able to filter my items which are eligible for disposal. And that's again automatically built based on the enrichments our solution does by extracting the metadata, by associating the sensitivity classification, etc. So for example, in this case, I want to select the workspace which is international. And very quickly, I can narrow my search results down to about 1,000 records. And so in this case, I might be more comfortable approving the disposal of these records, and I can approve the disposal directly from the system. Over here, once you confirm the disposal, again, our solution collects all that information, does the orchestration of disposition across multiple sources, and if the source is a Microsoft 365 source, our solution integrates with Microsoft Purview for Microsoft 365 and leverages the Microsoft retention engine to be able to drive the disposition activities. If I look back at my records, which I have already disposed, so I have a number of records which are actually already disposed. And if I go back, actually look at the action records, this is again an important capability which provides more defensibility, more of an audit log, not just at the record management or the administration level, but as an individual, as a business reviewer or approver, I have the ability to come in and see all the items which I have disposed so far, or I have taken an action. And it could be a disposal action, or it could be an extension action. But I have the audit log available, and I can access this audit log. Again, our solution extends Microsoft Purview audit capabilities, especially in context of disposition reviews or destruction certificate, so to speak. The audit information which needs to be retained after a record is disposed. So we are collecting much more data, and we have the ability to do that because we are adding additional enrichment through our discovery capabilities to every single file that has been scanned and discovered in our solution. So all of that metadata, whether it is a sensitivity association, the sensitivity label, or if you're using SharePoint Online and you have custom metadata or content types, all of that metadata is associated with the record, can be configured here to bring back in the form of filters, but more importantly, is kept beyond the life cycle of the record. So these records, when they are disposed, you can see the workspace type is SharePoint in this case. It could have been a file share as well. But these are the workspaces which are assigned to me, and I have access to this metadata, and this metadata will be retained beyond the life cycle of this record. And at any given point in time, in the case of investigation or an audit, this is searchable and is extractable in order to be able to show that and present that as an evidence of disposition. So that's a quick view on disposal dashboard. And if I go back here on all the items which are pending disposal in my solution, So these are all the records. I have 13,000 records which I have to get through and dispose. Not only I have the aggregated view, I still have that control as a reviewer, access to the records. Now, of course, our objective um, is to enable the users who need to review these things to be able to perform that aggregation, to be able to perform that review at an aggregated level, but you still have the control to be able to come in, and we enrich this through an advanced search. So one of the common scenarios is PII likelihood. So if I just say PII likelihood is yes, and this PII likelihood is based on, again, just referring back to the data explorer I showed you, is the sensitive information types which are built in Microsoft Purview. Based on that, we have analyzed the content, and every single file we have tagged where it contains a PII likelihood based on the sensitive information type template. So all of these records have a PII likelihood. If I wanted to, I could come in here, apply the filters, select all the items, and I can perform a couple of actions. For example, I could approve the record disposal, or I could extend the retention. As you can see that, the relabeling capability is disabled here. And so our solution is also configurable in a way that according to your requirements, if you do not want the approvers or reviewers to be able to perform bulk relabeling or mass relabeling of files, and this action is only available to authorized compliance officers or record managers or or security analysts, etc., then these can be controlled, which again is a little bit of a difficulty in the Microsoft Purview administrative interface, where you often get or require a privileged access, whereas in this interface you're presented with a sort of more business management interface through which you can make the decisions. But because it is supported by a workflow, you might have another step in the process that if, as a business approver or a business reviewer, I approve the disposal of these records, then there is a centralized role who will do a check before submitting the request over into, let's say, Microsoft Purview, or in our solution, for eventually performing those remediations. One of the remediation workflow, what I'm showing to you right now, is a disposal workflow, but that's not the only workflow which is supported in the solution. So that completes the disposal workflow. There are many such workflows which are supported in our solution. As a user, I can always come and also see a unified view of my data, which is managed across the solution. So if I just click over here, I can access all my sources which are accessible to me as, let's say, in my role as a data analyst or a security analyst, or even as a business user. So I may have files stored in multiple places in multiple systems, including SharePoint Online. I can come in here and actually select different sources which are managed or not managed and look at my records in one single place. I'm just conscious of time, Atle. Is there anything else that we wanted to show before we go on to the final set of slides?
No, I think this is a good run through. There's a lot more functionality, as you mentioned in here, but it was basically showing, I think, the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer, we can have another webinar just about Data Explorer.
So just finally, I wanted to say that, all of these reports, all of these interfaces are built using, Power BI, Power Platform capabilities. So what you're seeing here is, well, of course, highly configurable. Our value proposition here is bringing that unified data into one single place, presenting it through Power BI dashboards, integrating through workflow capabilities. But because these are Power BI, they hopefully give you an indication that you can you can create similar Power BI dashboards as well. But from our point of view, more importantly, we are not bringing an additional technology footprint. These are all the technology components which probably already exist and already in use within your organization. So the entire solution is built on Microsoft Stack, is leveraging Microsoft Purview, Graph API, log analytics capabilities behind the scenes, and the user interfaces are all built, well designed and built using the Microsoft Power Platform capabilities, and the workflows behind the scenes as such are using all Microsoft technology stack components.
So Vivek, should we go to the last slides and then open up for questions? I see there's at least a couple of comments and questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let me just share screen. If you can first perhaps explain just in a few sentences of how do we make this happen? Because there's some magic here.
Well, this add-on is transactable through Azure Marketplace. So like any other Microsoft add-on app that you bring into your platform, this is available through that. And so it doesn't require any installation or implementation or software installation as such. It's all cloud-based. There are two ways to use this capability, either as an Infotechtion hosted, cloud hosted, which is again hosted in Microsoft 365, Microsoft Azure platform, or it can be hosted within your Azure subscription. And it is all fully done using a software as a service delivery.
Any additional comments you want to add here, Vivek?
Yeah, just a quick thing. I showed a few things, but there's a ton of workflows which are supported, and the real power of this solution is in supporting those operational workflows, whether it is end of retention workflow or long-term archival capabilities. Event-based retention is a big challenge which we see with every single customer, and our attempt with this solution is to be able to bring those solutions which we have implemented to customers into one single package, so that our customers do not have to write those operational automations again and again. So you can benefit and you can take advantage of the work which has already been done for other customers, and now it is available as a fully packaged add-on product which you can leverage in Microsoft Purview. One of the things I would say is that you will see here Copilot. We have recently introduced in our stack of reports a new report which provides you an automated inventory of some of the capabilities which we believe as a customer you should remediate if you are looking to activate Microsoft Copilot in your platform. We're happy to have a separate conversation with you, but this capability does a full inventory of your Microsoft 365, provides you the details on risky workspaces where there is a risk of exposure or a overexposure, links which have been created within Microsoft 365, and if they contain a risk of data exposure, and a few other things, leveraging the benchmarking capabilities on your tenant settings to be able to give you a report which identifies the remediation actions which you should take on as part of your Copilot implementation.
And lastly, a simple slide to summarize.
Well, I won't say much about it, but the main thing to actually highlight here is that native integration with Microsoft Purview. Our objective is to embrace and extend Microsoft security. Microsoft security is the platform of choice for our customers. Our attempt with this add-on is to complete the operational requirements which our customers have after implementing or as part of implementing Microsoft security solutions. And one thing I want to highlight is that we support about 40 plus sources now. So not only this is about Microsoft 365 or security in Microsoft 365, but we are looking at this holistically across multiple data information sources within your IT landscape.
So before we open up and address some of the questions that we see, just want to share that recommended next step. To basically, we show now a little bit just an, how to say, and run through of what is possible here with this IARM solution that an extend and embrace Microsoft Purview, both for data security, but also data governance, that's data lifecycle management, but also the records management. To basically understand better what does it mean for you based on your requirement, happy to jump on a 30-minute call, me and my colleagues, and we have that in all regions, to basically hear a little bit more what's important for you. We can also do a 3-hour strategy workshop. That's free, and it's also actually available from the Microsoft Marketplace, to basically go in a little bit more detail, what's your requirement, and then how can those be met by extending and embracing Microsoft Purview. And that workshop can also then lead, if you want, to a proof of concept, where you actually then test and see and validate that this is the right approach. We can spin that up very, very quickly as a simple solution to you can actually see what's the user experience, what's the admin experience on this. So you can just respond to one of the emails you received about this, or ping us if you want to discuss some of these 3 steps approach. So the last thing is questions. And I know we have 9 minutes before I'm told by the marketing people that we need to be finished before that. So there's some questions here. I think the first question we saw in was, that was more a comment about ISO best practice for compliance. So ISO best practice for compliance, we haven't done a proper, like a detailed review, but I looked at, and some colleagues looked at ISO, like for records management, because there's a lot of ISO standards. But for records management compliance, you have, for example, ISO 15489, which is the most important. There's another ISO standard called ISO 16175, which is the technical features required to meet ISO 15489 for records management. And with our enhancement, we basically found that it basically meets most of those requirements. The only thing will be import-export, where we use other type of solution add-ons to meet those. So it's a quite compliant solution. Of course, for security, it's 27,000, which is the key for operating in this space. There was a question about physical records management module, but I think our colleague Mike addressed that. That's an add-on, a separate solution. Let's see here, what else do we have? There was a question here about disposal validation. Vivek, did we address that? Did somebody of my colleagues address that?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the disposal validation, yes, of course, it is possible to restrict it to individual, but it can also be restricted based on Active Directory or Azure Active Directory, or now it is called Microsoft Entra ID groups. These could be security groups, these could be Office 365 groups. The solution 100% integrates with Microsoft Entra ID governance. And not only just that, you could also use some adaptive capabilities in our solution to be able to tag based on Active Directory properties. So for example, if there is a role called information manager and you only want information managers to be responsible for validation, then it can be tagged based on an Active Directory property as well. So individual, yes, a group, yes, and an Active Directory property is also a yes.
There was a question up there about, is there like a formal statement about ISO compliance? And I don't think so. I also don't think Microsoft usually do that.
Well, there is a separate report. So there isn't a formal certification, but there is a report done by a third party, which kind of compares the features and, well, the requirements and the features, and kind of provides their opinion, not necessarily a formal certification.
Okay. I think we covered all questions. We'll look through them afterwards because I'm just scrolling up and down to see if we missed anything. Vivek, any last recommendations, comments from you?
I just want to say, well, thank you. A lot of you on the call, have been the people who have provided input into this. And this is the outcome of all those operational challenges which you have been facing, and we've been working with you to solve those problems. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who is on this call. We appreciate it. We appreciate the feedback, and we continue to work both, of course, with you and also Microsoft to be able to, work towards, completing Microsoft Purview as a unified data governance, as a unified data security solution for our customers.
Thank you very much, Vivek. Thank you all for attending. Recording will be sent out in the next few days, and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Have a good day and good evening.
Thank you.